Hi, I'm Eric, and this is Platform. This is a place where ideas are discussed and examined. Before we begin, we'll show you some bio on each of our guests. I'll be interviewing them one at a time, and we'll edit their thoughts into a final program. Please enjoy the lovely elevator music from our house band as we introduce each of our guests. We're talking about happiness today, and I'd like you to kind of give me an idea of what you think happiness is.
I think happiness is an overemphasized aspect of our American society. I think people expect to be happy all the time as if they're obligated, and they feel guilty if they're not, and they feel like they have to be insincere and hide it if they're not happy. So if you go up to someone and you ask, "How are you?" They could be having the worst day, but they're going to say, "I'm great," And I think that's a burden for people. And it's not common in all cultures, but I think it is particularly common in the American culture.
I noticed one thing. I've been traveling a lot, and being in Russia or in Japan, I always noticed the people really don't smile. I mean, we Germans don't smile also.
They don't smile. Yeah.
On the other hand, I remember when I came first to America, I was like 34, 35, and I always saw this faked grin, this kind of faked happiness. It was horrible. I didn't like it at all. I didn't know where my place is here. I didn't even know how to respond to this super smile face.
I don't know that I know what happiness is, actually. I think what I try and shoot for is well-being, right? And I don't ever try and do things where I'm trying to pursue happiness as much as I'm just trying to weed out things that don't promote well-being, right?
Well, I think there's two kinds of happiness. One, I think, is more of like an instant happiness where you do your taxes and you get a tax refund instead of having to pay, and you're like happy. Mm-hmm. And that's short term. And the other is, I think, more of an emotional state where all these positive emotions come together, like fulfillment and love and contentment and all these things, instead of miserable and stress and fear and all. So it's an emotional state that includes a lot of different emotions, mm-hmm. and we call that happiness.
Absence of pain. That's how I would define it, perhaps.
Absence of pain. That's interesting. Is happiness a choice?
I think so. I remember walking down Valverde Street here in Taos, and when I was like 14 years old with a girlfriend of mine, and we were walking down, and I had this I really felt like a light bulb had just popped on, I had this huge epiphany where I just thought, wow, happiness is a choice. And that doesn't mean you're not going to cry. It doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen to you. It just means that in the face of all of that, you'll still manage to find joy.
Mm. Do you think happiness is a choice?
Boy, it sure would be nice if it was, right? Like, it would be nice if you could just come up to a happy person or an unhappy person and say, "Hey, it's just a choice, man.
Yeah.
Flip it on,
Yeah.
Here, have a beer and be happy, and don't worry about whatever was bringing you down before."
Yeah.
So, is happiness a choice? I think what the real question is there is, do we have free will? Is free will real?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think to a large degree it is. And again, the keys for me involved in that choice are being grateful, being aware, being grateful, paying attention. appreciating.
I think if your world is miserable, if you're in stress and fear and you can't pay the bills, you don't have much of a choice.
Some people say that when you're born, you have an emotional set point. Do you feel that that's true?
Well, current theories suggest that people come into the world with a certain emotional set point, and that it's a continuum between being very depressed or ecstatic, and most people fall somewhere in between those two, and that will be their natural set point. So that, for example, if someone wins the lottery and they're able to buy houses for every member of their family and make their life easy and simple, and that they will be happier. They will be happy. And according to surveys that have been done, it's true. For a little while, they're happier. But if you track them a year or two down the road, they'll be back to whatever their set point was. So that theory says that we come in with a certain set point.
Yeah, I think left to your own devices, most people are going to kind of gravitate towards that. I mean, they're going to oscillate and overshoot a little bit, right, depending on what happens in their life. I would say, yeah, there's a baseline for that. And some people, they're just not going to be happy.
You know people, and their moods a lot of their moods are fairly consistent. A person is fairly consistent. They're always kind of on the happy side or always kind of on the morose side. And I think that people have a nature, and it's somewhere on that spectrum, all the way from ecstatic to miserable and depressed. And it's usually somewhere close to the middle, or a little bit more to the happy side, hopefully. And there's other people that, swing madly. Like one day they're really, kind of manic, and the next day they're depressed. And I think that's abnormal.
If you're not satisfied with where your emotional set point is, can you change it?
Just because I find it interesting, I've done a little research about how changeable is a person's set point, and everything that I've read in terms of studies say that you can change it a little bit, but not a whole lot.
How can you change it?
Through intention and attention. If you give your attention to things like being appreciative, being grateful, being aware of your own mood and not encouraging the malaise.
I know for myself that I can boost my immediate appreciation of life. Many times I'll go outside in the morning or whenever I go out, and the sun will hit me, and it's a beautiful place that we live in, and I just soak it in, and it's like I breathe it in, and my whole body tingles with like joy and pleasure,
No kidding.
Yeah, and I do that fairly often, and it just raises my spirit. Yeah, and I think anybody could do that. I think it's a choice in a lot of ways. Happiness, as long as you have everything going well, you're not in a concentration camp or whatever.
Yeah.
Then I think we can raise our emotional state a little bit.
I believe that our set points, or the one of the group we grow up with, is kind of indoctrinated. It's cultural. And I think we have some options, get out of this indoctrination and set ourselves up for what we want. Or we listen to the group where we feel we belong to and adapt their measurements about how to feel happy and not.
I feel it's a bit fatalistic just to say, well, you're born with this kind of set point, and through the waves, you're only going to ever be this happy. It's got to be able to change, or then that would just be like, then what's the point of free will?
So do you have a general philosophy about happiness and about how you're going to live your life?
Yeah, well, I guess you could start with the Hippocratic Oath, right? Even though I'm no doctor, but like the idea of first do no harm, right? That's kind of that's a big jumping off point, right? So if you can manage to eke out a happy existence, or the happiest existence that you can come up with, and you've really made sure that that you haven't decreased anyone's well-being in that process, then I think you win. Like that you did it right. You got through the whole game of life the right way.
Yeah.
My grandmother, she said to me, "Do you want to know my secret to a long life? Always keep your friends around you and never stop making new friends."
That's a good idea.
And I've found that that's also the secret to a happy life.
Personally, what works for me is my highest state of being is when I'm being creative. And I have a very loose definition of creativity. I consider sports to be creative because you're not consuming, you're planning how you're going to catch the ball, hit the ball, throw the ball, you know, row the boat, ski the hill, whatever it is. It's a creative endeavor in my mind. You're focused, you have an intense focus. And to me, that really works for me. That intense focus, body, mind, creative place is the highest state that I can be, and I feel the best in that state.
Personally, I think a happy life is one that's filled with awareness and gratitude and engagement.
I don't know that that should be our ultimate goal, is to pursue happiness, right? Like, I think we should come up with a set of goals based on completely other stuff than that.
Do you have any
know?
idea what that would be?
You know, I really like the phrase well-being, and maybe I'm just playing with semantics, but like
No.
human well-being,
Yeah.
and not just my well-being, but everybody's well-being, to the best that we can promote well-being among everybody, and that includes like not raining bombs upon their head, right? That's
that's makes you
because
unhappy.
whatever happiness is, I know it's not being bombed. I can tell you that being on the other end of a gun does not promote well-being or this intangible happiness that we're talking about.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of stuff that we can do, but I don't know that getting everybody to chase happiness and worry that their own happiness is not as much as it could be. I think there might be some trouble down that path.
And I just remember at one point, like, after my dad died or something, I came back out and it was like I could see, like, everything had changed. My whole perspective on life had kind of clicked. And it was like I could see a lot that I'd not been able to see prior to that. Like, I'd come out of the woods and I had this great vista ahead of me, and I was like, I'm never going to be like that again. You know, like, I will experience more grief, and it will still be hard. And but I know better now how to manage it. And if pain is guaranteed 100% of the time, then would it not be foolish just to share as much of the love and happiness as you can with everyone with the whole world?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it seems good to me.
Yeah.
Boom, shakalaka.